The Galactic Council's emergency meeting hall buzzed with tension as representatives from across the galaxy gathered. The massive chamber, designed to accommodate dozens of different species, was filled with beings of every conceivable shape and size. At the front sat the Krillians, their chitinous exoskeletons gleaming under the artificial lights, while the gaseous Etherians floated in their containment suits nearby. James Martinez and Elsa Chen sat quietly in the back row, as was customary for human delegates. The other species had long ago established this seating arrangement, viewing humans as one of the galaxy's younger and less significant civilizations. Neither James nor Elsa minded. They had learned that observation from the periphery often provided valuable insights. "The situation is dire," announced High Commander Vextar of the Krillians, his voice echoing through the chamber's translation. "System. The Void Devourers have broken through our outer defense grid. 17 systems have already fallen." A collective shudder ran through the assembled delegates. The Void Devourers were a mechanical plague that consumed entire planets, leaving nothing but empty space in their wake. They had appeared at the galaxy's edge 6 months ago, and despite the combined might of the Galactic Council's forces, they continued their relentless advance. "Our fleets cannot match their adaptive technology," rumbled General Thokmar of the stone-skinned Granite Warriors. "Every strategy we employ they counter within hours. It is as if they learn from our very thoughts." Elsa leaned closer to James, her voice barely a whisper. "Notice how they're all talking about conventional warfare, fleet movements, technological advantages, predictable strategies." James nodded slightly, his experienced military mind already working through possibilities. As a former Special Forces operative turned diplomat, he had seen this pattern before during Earth's own conflicts. The debate continued for hours. The Etherians proposed using their psychic networks to coordinate attacks. The Krillians suggested overwhelming force. The aquatic Mercalli recommended retreating to underwater worlds. Each solution was met with the same response from the others. It had already been tried and failed. Finally, Ambassador Prime Zixandra of the Etherians turned toward the back of the chamber. "Humans," she said, her translated voice carrying a note of desperate condescension. "Your species is known for unconventional approaches. Perhaps you have some insight to offer?" The chamber fell silent. Hundreds of eyes, sensors, and other perception organs focused on the two humans in the back row. James and Elsa exchanged a glance before James stood slowly. "With respect, Ambassador Prime," James began, his calm voice carrying clearly through the chamber. "We've been listening to your strategies for 6 hours. Every one of them assumes the enemy thinks like you do." A ripple of confusion passed through the gathering. Commander Vexitar's mandibles clicked irritably. "Explain yourself, human." Elsa rose beside James, her voice steady and confident. "You're fighting a conventional war against an unconventional enemy. The Void Devourers adapt because they're learning your patterns that are logical, predictable, and follow standard galactic military doctrine." "Are you suggesting our military traditions are flawed?" General Thokmar's stone features darkened with offense. "Not flawed," James replied diplomatically. "Just predictable. On Earth we have a saying, if you're not cheating, you're not trying." Hard enough. The chamber erupted in confused chatter. The concept seemed to perplex most species present. "Humans," Elsa continued, "spent millennia fighting each other before we reached the stars. We learned that survival often depends on doing what your enemy doesn't expect, being unpredictable, chaotic, even seemingly irrational." James activated his personal holopad, projecting tactical displays into the center of the chamber. "The Void Devourers have never encountered truly random tactics. They're machines. They think in patterns, probabilities, and logical progressions. But what if we don't give them patterns to learn from?" "Impossible," scoffed Commander Vextar. "Military strategy requires coordination, planning, logical deployment of resources." "Does it?" Elsa asked with a slight smile. "James, tell them about Operation Chaos Theory." James's tactical display shifted to show Earth's successful defense against the Silicon Plague 40 years earlier. When artificial intelligences attacked Earth, our traditional military was overwhelmed in days. So we did something unprecedented. We gave command authority to artists, musicians, children, even comedians, people who didn't think in military terms. The chamber listened in stunned silence as James continued. A 12-year-old girl suggested we attack on Tuesdays because she didn't like Tuesdays. A jazz musician commanded fleet movements based on improvisational music. A stand-up comedian ordered retreats in the middle of victories just to confuse the enemy. That's madness, whispered Ambassador Prime Zixandra. Exactly, Elsa said. Pure, beautiful madness. The AIs couldn't predict what we'd do next because we didn't know what we'd do next. They fell back, trying to analyze patterns that didn't exist. James gestured toward the tactical displays. The Void Devourers are learning your strategies because your strategies make sense. What if we coordinate with your fleets but use human, tactical doctrine, random deployments, irrational timing, attacks that serve no strategic purpose, retreats that abandon tactical advantages? The silence stretched for long moments before General Thokmar spoke slowly. You're proposing we fight like madmen? We're proposing you fight like humans, Elsa corrected gently. 3 weeks later, the Void Devourers encountered something they had never faced before: complete tactical chaos. Human commanders scattered throughout the galaxy's fleets began issuing orders that defied all military logic. Ships retreated when they should attack, attacked when they should retreat, and sometimes did nothing at all in the middle of battles. The results were immediate and devastating to the Void Devourers. Unable to predict or counter purely random tactics, their adaptive systems began to malfunction. They started second-guessing their own calculations, withdrawing from battles they were winning, committing resources to defend against attacks that never came. Within 2 months, the mechanical plague had been pushed back beyond the galaxy's edge, their collective intelligence apparently suffering from something resembling a nervous breakdown. In the aftermath, as the Galactic Council celebrated victory, Ambassador Prime Zixandra approached James and Elsa in their usual seats at the back of the chamber. We owe you a debt, she admitted. Your chaotic approach saved us all. James smiled, gesturing toward the empty seats at the front of the chamber. You know, there's plenty of room up there if you'd like us to move forward. Elsa shook her head with a knowing grin. Actually, we prefer it back here. Better view of everything that's happening. The Ambassador Prime paused, then nodded with something approaching respect. Perhaps, she said quietly, there is wisdom in observing from the edges. As the chamber emptied around them, James and Elsa remained in their seats, watching and learning. The galaxy had discovered that sometimes the most dangerous species wasn't the strongest or the smartest. It was the one that refused to be predictable. And humans, as the galaxy now understood, were anything but predictable.